When Todd Boehly first walked through the doors of Stamford Bridge, Chelsea stood at the crossroads of two very different eras. The man who had transformed them from a sleeping giant into one of Europe's most feared clubs, Roman Abramovich, had been forced to leave the stage. For nearly 2 decades, Abramovich was the heartbeat of Chelsea. His 19-year reign delivered 5 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League trophies, and a collection of silverware that elevated the club into the European elite. From the moment he arrived in 2003, Chelsea were never the same again. Yet, his era ended suddenly and dramatically. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Abramovich was sanctioned by the UK government. His assets were frozen, and his ownership of Chelsea ended almost overnight. For the supporters, it felt like the ground had shifted from beneath them. Abramovich had not only been the perfect owner, but an ambitious, ruthless, and above all successful leader. Chelsea fans had grown used to living under one of football's most powerful figures. Now, with his departure, they were staring into the unknown. Who could possibly follow Abramovich and live up to that legacy? Well, the answer arrived in May 2022. The new face of Chelsea was Todd Boehly, the American businessman best known for his part ownership of the Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team. Alongside Clear Lake Capital and other investors, Boehly led a consortium that paid £4.25 billion to purchase the club, one of the most expensive deals in the history of sports. The takeover was met with a cocktail of emotions: curiosity, hope, and unease. Boehly was a newcomer to European football, but he projected energy and confidence. He promised fans that Chelsea would continue to compete at the very highest level. He promised investment. He promised success. Very quickly, he became more than just an owner. He was personally involved in football decisions, something that's rare at the elite level. Under Abramovich, Chelsea had always been structured and strategic. Marina Granovskaya, regarded as one of football's most formidable negotiators, had handled transfers, and club legend Petr Cech served as technical and performance advisor. They had given Chelsea stability, direction, and professionalism, but within weeks of Boehly's arrival, both were gone. In a stunning move, Boehly appointed himself interim sporting director. The new era had well and truly begun. His first summer transfer window set the tone. Chelsea spent close to £278 million, more than any British club had ever spent in a single transfer window. Raheem Sterling arrived from Manchester City. Kalidou Koulibaly joined from Napoli to replace the departed Antonio Rudiger. Marc Cucurella came from Brighton in a surprise deal. And Wesley Fofana signed from Leicester for over £70 million. Youngster Carney Chukwuemeka was added from Aston Villa. Now on paper, Chelsea had built a squad capable of battling Manchester City and Liverpool at the very top. But football isn't decided on spreadsheets, it's decided on the pitch. By September, the cracks were already showing. A 1-0 Champions League defeat to Dinamo Zagreb proved to be the breaking point. This was when Boehly made his first huge decision. He sacked Thomas Tuchel. This was the same Tuchel who had guided Chelsea to Champions League glory in 2021, beating Pep Guardiola's Manchester City in the final. But behind the scenes, reports suggested Tuchel and Boehly clashed over transfer targets and the club's long-term direction. Boehly turned to Graham Potter, the Brighton manager admired for his tactical flexibility and calm approach. Potter was seen as a progressive, modern coach, but he had never managed a club of Chelsea's size nor competed for the biggest trophies. It was a gamble, an ambitious attempt at building a long-term project. Then came January 2023, and with it, one of the most jaw-dropping transfer windows football has ever seen. Chelsea spent £323 million in just 1 month, more than many clubs spend in years. Enzo Fernández arrived from Benfica for a British record £106.8 million on an 8.5-year deal. Mykhailo Mudryk joined for approximately £88.5 million after Chelsea hijacked his move from Arsenal. João Felix arrived on loan from Atletico Madrid. Benoit Badiashile, Noni Madueke, Malo Gusto, Audrey Santos, and David Datro Fofana also came through the door. The strategy was clear: offer ultra-long contracts to spread the transfer fees across many years, staying within UEFA's financial fair play rules. It was creative, it was bold, but it was also risky. If these players didn't perform, Chelsea could be stuck with them for the better part of a decade. And quickly, that risk became reality. The squad ballooned in size to the point where some players reportedly didn't even have proper locker space at Cobham. There was no settled starting 11, no chemistry, and no rhythm. Chelsea fell into mid-table obscurity. By April, Boehly had seen enough. Potter was sacked after just 31 matches in charge. In desperation, Chelsea turned back to Frank Lampard, appointing him as caretaker manager, as the club's all-time top scorer and a true legend. Lampard's return was meant to lift spirits. Instead, it was a disaster. Under his leadership, Chelsea won just one of their final 11 games, slumping to 12th in the Premier League, their worst finish since 1994, and missing out on European competition for the first time in a quarter of a century. The next reset came in summer 2023 with the appointment of Mauricio Pochettino. The Argentine coach was respected for leading Tottenham to a Champions League final and managing superstars at Paris Saint-Germain. He seemed to be the right man to bring balance and expertise to Chelsea's young and raw squad, but Boehly's spending spree wasn't finished. Moisés Caicedo joined from Brighton for £115 million, breaking the British transfer record again. Christopher Nkunku signed from Red Bull Leipzig. Cole Palmer arrived from Manchester City for £42.5 million, and Leslie Ugochukwu, Axel Disasi, and goalkeeper Robert Sanchez also joined. By now, Boehly had spent over £1 billion in transfer fees in just 2 years. Chelsea's squad was young, talented, and packed with potential, but it lacked leaders. The old guard of Terry, Lampard, and Drogba were gone. In their place was a group of players brimming with energy but short on experience. Under Pochettino, there were glimmers of progress. Cole Palmer quickly established himself as a revelation, playing with the confidence of a seasoned veteran. Chelsea delivered some strong cup performances and occasional flashes of brilliance in the league, but inconsistency remained their greatest weakness. They could beat a title contender one week, then lose to a relegation-threatened side the next. Fans began to grow restless. Recruitment went scattergun. Too many players were signed for the same positions, leaving other areas neglected. The squad lacked balance, chemistry, and above all, identity. Once again, Chelsea failed to qualify for the Champions League, and once again, their manager was gone. Pochettino left at the end of the season, making him the fourth manager dismissed under Boehly's leadership in just 2 years. Tuchel, Potter, Lampard, Pochettino, all different coaches, all different philosophies, all leaving behind mismatched squads. The pattern was now undeniable. Boehly's Chelsea was defined by upheaval, massive transfer spending without a clear strategy, constant managerial changes, and instability behind the scenes. He had invested more money than any other owner in football history, but money alone does not win trophies. Success requires structure, identity, and long-term vision. Chelsea, at least so far, had none of these. Well, it seems like Boehly and his board have learned their lessons. Maybe not with their erratic transfer policy, but with how they have to treat their manager. After Pochettino, Enzo Maresca walked through the door just after managing Leicester City back into the Premier League. Fans were initially skeptical. They saw him as another Graham Potter, a young manager with potential who lacked experience. Many predicted he'd be sacked within months. However, he proved his doubters wrong. In only his first season, Chelsea qualified for the Champions League after 2 seasons of being out of the competition. The Blues also beat Real Betis in the final to win the UEFA Conference League. And add to that the cherry on top, they are now world champions. Chelsea beat the European champions PSG in the Club World Cup final. And they didn't just win, they outplayed their opponent completely. PSG entered that game as the favorites, but Maresca's men shocked the footballing world. The game can be described as men versus boys. After 2 years of outrageous spending and constantly making the wrong decisions, it seems like Todd Boehly has got his act together. He has learned from his mistakes and is now ready to turn Chelsea back into the force that they once were. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Chelsea's turbulent new era, make sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next football story. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, check out our Patreon, the link for which will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.